Welcome, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hi, everyone. I'm Jay. I am the founder and CEO of Matters of My Heart, an emotional support program for adult survivors of childhood domestic and sexual abuse. And I am also the creator of the I Am Empowerment movement. So if you don't know about that movement, there's the link there on the screen. And the I Am Empowerment movement is a private online Facebook group, support group. We provide support, solutions, and results. If you've been watching the lives this month, you know that I say that all the time because it is a place where we do provide support, solutions, and results. It is a place where we are a community. We help one another. We build one another up. We empower one another. Empowerment is to give permission to do something. And so in the I Am Empowerment movement, where you're moving from one place to the next, it is a place where you are saved, you are not judged, you are not criticized, and it's a safe space for adult survivors of childhood domestic and sexual abuse. There are other victim advocates in the group. There are clinical psychologists in the group. There are, other survivors, of course, in the group. So it really is a safe space. And if you want to know more about it, go to that link that's posted below. So that's my opening spiel as I wait for those to hop on. And while you're hopping on, you know the drill. I will be sharing the broadcast to let everyone know that I'm live. First, I'm going to check to make sure that I'm live. Just to make sure what I see on the screen and what you see, two different things I'm learning. So just want to make sure all is well. And as you come on, make sure that you share the broadcast too. As you hop on, if you're watching the replay, thank you so much for allowing me in your space. Share the broadcast. That's what I ask. And let's get this thing cracking. I'm almost there. I'm just checking to make sure I'm live and just rambling on. Tonight's conversation is going to be, in the title you saw, hatred and unforgiveness. And all day I struggled with if I wanted to tackle hatred on this broadcast tonight. We'll see. Haven't made up my mind yet. Hey, Susan. Welcome to the broadcast, sweetie. So tonight's conversation it's going to be a little different than what most people think I'm going to say about forgiveness. And I chose this talk. I chose this broadcast specifically because I wanted to share with you my experience with forgiveness, but also what I've learned through the journey and the process of forgiveness. So I've already let the cat out of the bag already by saying that forgiveness is a process. It's an internal process. And so tonight I'm hoping that I can have a conversation with you about what forgiveness is and what it's not. and then the effects of unforgiveness, right? This conversation is not about the person who offended you. This conversation is not pressure, because we get that a lot, especially particularly from faith-based organizations. We get the pressure to forgive. And, the scripture that they use all the time is, if you don't forgive others, then your heavenly Father won't forgive you. And that's in Matthew 6:15, I think it is. I wrote it down. So the conversation that I'm going to have with you tonight may piss some people off, and it may rub people the wrong way. It is okay. I think I've grown to the point in my life where I'm freed. I am free. I have been freed from the opinion of everyone else, simply because, they haven't walked my shoes. Now, they may have gone through their own trials, their own tribulations, their own obstacles, their own challenges, but they haven't gone through mine, and they haven't felt my emotions, and they haven't felt my feelings. I'm going to talk about that tonight, Susan. Thank you. Thank you for ending it the way that you did, because that's exactly what I'm going to talk about. You often hear people say, well, it's not for you. It's for the, it's not for the other person. It's for you. And what I say to that is, look, now I won't. What I say to that is, there's part of that statement is true, but when it comes to someone such as myself, who has been, and the hurt is deeply rooted, and it's been hoarded in my heart for such a long time, it's very difficult to understand that statement. For someone who has been raped, for someone who has been sexually assaulted, there's a difference. For someone who has been beaten near death, it's hard for us to understand the statement, well, it's for you and it's not for them. Forgiveness is a requirement in order for you to get to heaven. Forgiveness is a requirement in order for you to move on with your life. Parts of those statements are true, but here's the flip side of that. Don't make a statement and leave me hanging with no instructions. I had a live about that earlier. Let go and let God with no instructions. We say these things because it sounds good. Or we say these things because we're so accustomed to hearing it, so we repeat it. But those statements are empty. All right? They're empty. It doesn't mean shit to someone like me. It actually fuel to the fire. If you say to me, well, you have to, I do. But wait a minute, what comes along with forgiveness? But wait a minute, what is forgiveness? You're leaving me hanging here. So, y'all know, for one, and for two, I looked up some definitions And I looked up some as I was researching the conversation, researching the topic tonight. I saw some. I don't know what that means. Um, I don't know what that means, Susan. They just coming out of their mouth with something. They just talking a bunch of stuff. So I looked up the word forgiveness. And I want to read it to you. Okay. So forgiveness, to send off or away, separating the sinner from his sin. Hate. Hate means the intense or passionate dislike, deep and extreme emotional dislike. Hate. Deep and extreme emotional dislike. Ah, okay, I got you. I got you. So when someone has hatred or unforgiveness in their heart, whether you may feel it's justified or not, let's just say for the sake of this broadcast that it is justified, that you have experienced something traumatic, whether it's divorce, whether it's a breakup, whether it is infidelity, whether it is rape, sexual assault, domestic violence, emotional abuse, being fired from a job, being homeless, a high school dropout, and trying to figure out how you're going to feed your kids and feed your babies. Whatever life brought your way that put you in a place where you are struggling and you're challenged with forgiveness, because that's what you've been told you had to do. You've been required, so to speak, that you have to forgive someone who has hurt you. And when I say required, I'm talking about someone who may have some type of authority in your life, such as, a pastor or whomever, your family members. I chuckle because forgiveness has always been a challenge for me because I never really understood it. Prior to my remembering what happened to me as a kid, I thought I had forgiveness down pat. Prior to me releasing my family anthology, I thought I had forgiveness down pat. Prior to me losing my child, I thought I had forgiveness down pat. Prior to me going through one of the hardest moments of my life, I thought I had forgiveness down pat. Prior to me being in the space that I'm in right now, I thought I had forgiveness down pat. But let me repeat it again. There's forgiveness that I learned. One, that is a process. It is also a necessary process in your healing, emotional healing journey. But two, which to me overshadows the first one, it is your choice. It is not your pastor's choice. It is not your first lady's choice. It is not your church's choice. It is not your family's choice. Your mother, father, sister, brother, cousin, auntie, uncle. It is no one's choice but yours. And only yours. And so when people come to me and they say to me that, you know, you guys, you guys don't know what I have to deal with in the background, in the background of these lives. Like I got twins walking around the house. I got my boyfriend walking around, you know, making faces, and they're trying to throw me off my game, but it's not going to happen tonight. So what I want you to take from this broadcast is I want you to be from the pressure that you have to forgive. I want you to be released from the weightiness of feeling like you're not going to be able to function or be emotionally healed. I know, Susan, he is trying to make me smile because this is such a heavy topic. And you know, he's always making me laugh. So, babe, Susan said you're just trying to make me smile. So I want you, the whole purpose of me having this conversation, one is I avoided the conversation all month because I realized that, you know, it is kind of touchy when you're talking about someone who's been hurt, when you're talking about someone who's been damaged by life, to say to them that you have to forgive. Like there's no other way. I still want you to, one, it's a process. It is a necessary emotional healing. But two, is your and shadows one. So don't allow someone's opinion or their belief don't allow that to cause you to feel something, you know, inadequate because you feel like you're unable to forgive. Does that make sense? Am I making sense to anybody? I want you to be free from other people's opinion, other people's ideas, other people's ideologies, other people's, you know, way of controlling how you think and feel. Understanding what forgiveness really, really is. What it's not. It's not, I wrote it down. Why people are reluctant to forgive. So why is it hard for us to forgive? Because we're holding on to the anger. We want justice, right? I know I do. We want some type of justice. We want you to feel, or you or whoever hurt us to feel the same pain that you inflicted upon us. That's justice to me. We want revenge. We want an apology. Like I want everyone, whoever hurt me, to line the hell up and give me an apology. Will that make me feel better? We'll talk about that later. But we want an apology. We think that if we forgive someone, that it condones their behavior or it pardons their behavior. So it gives them a pass. And because of that, we don't want to Like it's difficult. It's difficult to forgive in that instance. Um, and then we place judgment on the person who offended us to make the assumption that everyone is going to treat us the same way. That everyone is that nobody in the world is good. Everybody's effed up. I can't trust anybody. And so living in that mentality keeps us and blocks us from being able to forgive. When forgiveness is simply letting go, but it's an internal process. So that statement is not for them, it's for you. It's partly true because it is a heart thing. Forgiveness is a heart thing. It is a choice. It is our choice when we're ready to let go of not the offense, but the power that it has over us. When we're ready to release the hold that it has on us. Now, unforgiveness, I've said this on a couple of my lives, and I've said this over and over and over again, that unforgiveness is more like an infection. Now, remember I said that earlier that forgiveness is a heart thing. And so unforgiveness, heart thing, right? Is like the infection. And if we don't deal with it, if we don't face it, if we ignore it, then that infection spreads. And what could have been healed with a little love and affection and tenderness, love and tenderness. I think there's a song called Love and Tenderness. Something like that. I think it's an old school song. I don't know. I can't remember. But what could have been prevented from spreading is now this massive infection that grows into a disease that is now affecting our mental health. Because unforgiveness will eventually spread its way through our mind, body, and soul. It will come out in ways of anxiety. Oh, yes. Is that the song? Who sing that song, Susan? Someone sing that song. So unforgiveness in ways of anxiety. It will come out in ways of panic attacks. It will come out in ways of depression. It will come out in a way of isolation. It will come out in a way of bitterness, anger, resentment, grudges. Like all of these things are manifested through unforgiveness. So now what it sounds like, I'm saying to you, you have to forgive. Nope. Out of everything I just said to you of unforgiveness, I'm still not giving you or making you feel the pressure that you have to forgive. I'm simply giving you information, what happens and what comes from unforgiveness. It's so easy to say you have to pardon that person or those people who offended you. It's so easy to come out of someone's mouth and say you have to get over it. You have to move on. It's real easy to say that. But it's a journey to get there. And that's what they leave out. They leave out the journey of getting to the place of forgiveness. I'll give you two stories of my own challenge with forgiveness. And this is why I say forgiveness is a choice. My background story, most everyone knows, I was sexually molested by my uncle at the age of 5, between 5 and 9. And so I didn't remember. My mind blocked it out until my late 20s. That's when I started remembering. And the first relationship that I separated from was my relationship with God. I was angry with God. I questioned him. So I had a lot of stuff brewing inside of my heart. And when I say a lot, I mean a lot of stuff. I had some broken, like I was broken. My world was blown apart. The fun, the loving Jamie that I thought I knew, the bubbly, the risk taker, the one that was always, out there and fighting for everyone and making people laugh and loving on people. I mean, I loved people. I loved being around people. I loved the idea of love. I loved being in relationships. All of that changed when I remembered what happened to me as a child. And so my heart immediately began to turn cold and bitter and resentful towards God and towards people in my family. Mainly towards my aunt who married this monster. And so when I began my emotional healing journey, when I started going to therapy, when I started working on self-love, working on self-acceptance, working on self-image, when I started putting in the work for emotional healing journey, my therapist never said to me, ever, not in any of our sessions, that Jamie, you're not going to be able to achieve what you desire to achieve, which means the pain going away if you don't forgive. What she said is what I'm saying to you. It's a process, and when you're ready, you'll know. Because it won't be hard. Forgiveness, when you're ready and when it's your choice, it won't be hard to do. It will be easy. But let me explain too. To get to that easy part, you got to go through the hard part. And that hard part is facing that ugliness like right in its face. So let me get back to my story. So my aunt was the one that I held to the highest standard of, you should have protected me. My aunt is the one that I blamed for what happened. Even though she didn't touch me. She did participate in some of the sexual act. I blamed her because she married him, and I blamed her because she allowed him to not only touch her children, but to touch the children of other people, touch other folks' kids. So I blamed her. I will admit. But it took me years to begin the process of forgiving her. But you know what, Susan? The most powerful thing about my whole story is it really doesn't matter who's to blame. What mattered to me at that point of emotional healing wasn't to place blame. Yes, that's how I felt. And that's why I felt like it was harder for me to forgive her than it was to forgive her husband, my then uncle, because she was blood. She was blood. She was my mother's sister. So when I began my emotional healing journey, when I began going to therapy, when I began doing the work, and let me tell you, it was not easy. But when I began that journey, I made a list of everyone that I was angry with. I wrote it down. I made a physical list. And I began the process of, what am I going to do with this anger? Because what I'm doing now, or what I was doing then, wasn't really benefiting my life. I was drinking excessively. I was popping pills to go to sleep. I was haunted. You know, we're talking about the ghosts that keep me awake. I was haunted by those thoughts. Like every time I closed my eyes, I saw my uncle. And that pissed me off even more about my aunt. And so the anger for her inside of me grew. Like it grew. It overwhelmed me how angry I was. And then I began to think about other members of my family, and I began to get angry with them. Mind you, I've never talked to them about this. I never went to them. And that's another thing about forgiveness. You don't have to go to that person and say, I forgive you. Because it's not even about them. It's a heart thing. My aunt passed away, I want to say 5 years ago. I want to say that. I want to say maybe 4 or 5 years ago. It could have been shorter than that. I really, honestly, to God, I don't remember when she passed away. But what I do remember is that when she did pass away, I still had not forgiven her. And I had been on this emotional healing journey for 5-6 years. I did not go to her funeral. I did not try to go to her funeral. I had no desire. I shut down all social media because you know how it is on social media, and family members like, rest in peace, and oh, I love you so much, and like I could not stomach people saying anything good about this woman who effed up my life. I felt like she was responsible for how effed up I was. 2 years later, I had reached a point, mind you, she's dead. Ain't coming back. Two years after she had passed, I had gotten to the point where I was ready to forgive her. Did I go to the grave and say, hey, Auntie, I forgive you? No. Did I say a prayer? God, if she's up there or wherever she is, could you tell her that I forgive her? No. I was simply at the place where I was ready to not be bound by her anymore, or by what she did or didn't do. Like, I was ready to let it go. I was at that place. And so when that came out of my mouth, I said, you know what? And it actually happened when I was doing one of my radio shows. It actually happened live on the radio show. I'm ready to forgive her. And that began my process of forgiving my aunt. And I say process because, I had a lot of anger that I had to work through. And so what I had to do was just, really think about and really allow that emotion of anger to flow out of my body, to flow out of my mind, to flow out of my soul, to flow out of my heart. I was at the place where I was ready to do that. Now, that's story number one. Story number two, where I have not made the decision to forgive, is my biological father. Just recently, I found out something about him that he had done that that put me in a place where I no longer speak to him. I do harbor unforgiveness in my heart towards him. I am angry. I am pissed off, angry, disappointed at my biological dad. I haven't spoken to him in over a year. I didn't call him for his birthday. I didn't call him for Happy New Year's. I didn't call him for Christmas. I literally, when I found out this information, I physically and emotionally cut him off. And so and I've had, conversations with, one of my sisters, and even she's in a place where I don't know what to do with this information, and, what am I supposed to do? And how do I, this was a man that I'm named after. This was a man that I had a very close relationship with. And what I found out, the information I found out, broke me down. I didn't call to ask him anything. I didn't call to have a conversation with him. I didn't call to try to make amends. None of that. You know why? Because I'm not damn it ready. And when I get to the place where I'm ready, then and only then will I do it. But I don't put pressure on, well, Jamie, by this time you need to have forgiven your father. Or what if he dies and you've never made amends and you're going to feel guilty and all this pressure. I give it all the middle finger. Because my aunt was dead when I decided to forgive her. It's a process, forgiveness, and it's my choice. And so what's important about someone who's been hurt, someone who's been stripped from their self-identity, someone who's been stripped from their control, someone who's been stripped from their self-esteem, what's important for me now is to regain that control. And so I can't control what other people do, but I can control how I respond, and I can control what I do. And forgiveness, I control that. I decide when I'm ready to forgive. Not you, not my family, not my pastor, not my boyfriend. No one makes that decision but me. So I got some tips for you really quickly. What am I doing on my time? Okay. So I have some tips for you when it comes to forgiveness. Tip number 1, forgive with boundaries. You can forgive someone, and we just talked about the process of forgiving, the process of letting go, the hard thing. When you get to that place when you're ready to release the control of what that pain has over you, that pain that dictates your relationship, that dictates your conversations, that dictates your feelings and emotions. So when you're ready to not allow that to control you anymore, then you're ready to walk into forgiveness. But you can forgive with boundaries. Set limitations, particularly towards someone who you have to forgive, or who you are trying to forgive. Who are you working through forgiveness with? 1, you don't have to tell them a damn thing. You don't have to have you don't have to have contact with them. You don't have to have them in your life. But say that they're an intimate partner and they did something that hurt you deeply, and you're ready to walk in forgiveness as it pertains to that relationship. Then you make very clear boundaries on that relationship. Every relationship needs boundaries. Like, listen, for me, infidelity, that's it. Like, that's what's going to really break us up. For me, physical violence, that's what's really going to break us up. I have boundaries. I have limitations. I have expectations. All of that goes with a conversation. Understanding that in some situations don't require any contact at all. As a matter of fact, you know, if it's a situation where you've been physically harmed, then I'm not going to say to you, well, forgive that person and then take them back into your life because they said I'm sorry and they'll never do it again. Totally different situation. I'm not going to sit here and say, put yourself in harm's way. No. That's what I mean by forgiveness with boundaries. The boundary is I'm going to make sure that I'm taken care of mentally, spiritually, physically, emotionally. Like, it's about making sure that my mental health is intact. And if anything that is going to compromise that or compromise my mental health, it's not worth it. That's a boundary. So forgive with boundaries. Tip number 2, deal with the emotions first. The anger, the bitterness, the resentment, the grudges, the, what else do I have? Disappointments, the hatred, the hurt, the bitterness. I said bitterness already, right? Deal with those emotions. Don't ignore them. Don't, don't pretend like they don't exist. Hell, they're there in your heart. That's what's blocking the release of forgiveness, of starting the process and the journey of forgiveness. All of that harboring of negative and strong emotions, all of that is what's blocking you from being able to forgive. All of that is blocking your heart from being able to do what it's designed to do, and that's love, and to love freely. You walk away from what, Susan? You walk away. Tell me what you walk away from. So deal with those emotions. Face them. Acknowledge them. Yes, I'm angry right now. I may have a little bitterness and resentment. Okay. You walk away from those who hurt you. Yes, you can physically walk away from them, but the emotion, the effects are still there. You still have to deal with that. You still have to face the effects, the after effects. See, this is about emotional healing, not physical healing. You can physically remove yourself from their presence, and that is okay. That is completely okay, but it doesn't heal the emotions that come from whatever happened. Doesn't heal it. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about going a step further. Going a step further from physical separation. Now, how am I going to deal? Yes, but you're also in an emotional jail. You're also stuck and trapped in emotional jail. Now you have self-esteem issues. Now you're disappointed. Now you're angry and you're bitter and you're resentment, and all of that flows over into everything else in your life. If you don't do tip number 2, all of that happened. Yes, I got it. Now I got to deal with my new normal. Now I got to deal with how am I going to live and cope with this new thing now. Because old thing is over. I can't go back there. And I tend to disagree with that. I tend to disagree. I believe emotional pain is a lot harder to get through than physical pain. I know you said jail, but I'm interjecting pain with jail. Yeah. Because it's hard to get over some of the stuff that I've gone through. Like, you can't just get over it. That stuff, like, that anger and that hurt, that pain is no joke, people. And so, and again, I quote Rumi. I think I'm pronouncing his name right. I don't know who the guy is. Rumi. I got him from Deepak Chopra, my favorite guy. But the cure for pain is in the pain. You have to go through the pain to come to release the pain. Still talking about forgiveness, still talking about the ghosts that keep us awake. Still talking about all those things. So, deal with those emotions. Don't ignore them. Don't ignore that you have something going on the inside of you, and you just rather pretend like it's not there. You rather go through life just on autopilot, as I call it. You get up, you go to work, you pay your bills, you go to church, and you raise your children, and you cook dinner, and you do all these things, but yet there's still something there that when you lay down at night, you cry yourself to sleep, or you can't sleep, so you take sleeping pills. I've been there, because you can't sleep because your mind is so freaking overwhelmed with pain, with thoughts, with triggers, with memories. Or you buried it so deep inside of you. But every now and again, it peeks its head out and reminds you, yep, still here. I ain't going nowhere. Or you've come so conditioned to being bitter that you don't even know that you're bitter. Everyone around you knows, and everyone around you stays away. Like, I don't want to be around a negative person. I don't want to be around someone that's bitter. That energy that you give off because you refuse to deal with the emotional pain. So that's tip number 2. Tip number 3. Y'all always know I say this. I say this on, like, this is probably like in every tip that I always give. Talk to someone. Talk to a trusted counselor. That does not have to be a licensed counselor. Doesn't have to be a licensed therapist. Talk to a counselor. You know who a counselor is? Someone who is able to handle the conversation that you can have with them in the most realest way, in the most rawest way. Someone who's able to say, I get what you're feeling, and it's okay that you feel that way. They're not going to judge you. They're not going to criticize you. They're not going to make you feel bad. They're not going to force you to forgive. They're not going to force you to do anything that you are not ready to do. But they tell you the truth. They tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. And I tell people this all the time. It's like, I love your soul more than I care about your feelings. Why do I say that? Because feelings are unreliable, especially when you're hurt. You can't rely on anger. You can't rely on bitterness. You can't rely on resentment. You can't rely on grudges. You can't rely on those things. You can't rely on disappointments. Oh my God. You can't rely on unforgiveness. You can't. Those are feelings, emotions. You can't rely on that. You have to rest in the truth. And sometimes it's hard to see the truth for the pain. So talk to a trusted counselor, someone that's on the outside that can help you put things into perspective, that can help you navigate through those feelings and get to the truth. And finally, and let me say too, that these tips are not in any particular order. They're not. I'm just giving them out. Not in any order. Take them in the order in which it works for your life. Take them in the order in which it works for your emotional healing journey. Your choice. Tip number 4, self-love and acceptance. That's like a given. You will not be able to forgive until you forgive yourself, but you also accept and love yourself. You know that you are worthy of respect, of love, of decency. You know that you are worthy of good things. You are worthy of gifts. You are worthy of blessings. That what happened to you didn't define you, and it didn't define your character. It didn't take away from that. Now, the effects of it took away from it. The effects of being abused, the effects of being hurt, That took away and stripped away at some of your character. But the true heart of you is still there. And that's who we're trying to get back to. Because you can look in the mirror, the hurt you will look in the mirror and be disgusted and hate what looks back at them, at her or him, at you. But the healing part of you will see that you're a work in progress and that you're moving forward and that you are amazing and beautiful and gifted and talented, and you can't be stopped. You can't be taken out. So those are the tips that I have for you tonight. I am running out of time, but I'm still on time. I'm still within the hour. So though that's what I had for you for tonight. I wanted to have that conversation about forgiveness. It is your choice. It is your rightful choice. It's a heart thing. And don't allow anyone to make you feel pressure that you have to do this thing. You do it when you're ready because it's your choice, and you trust the process of it because it's not easy. It is painful, but it is a process. And when you go through it, there's something so great on the other side. And that thing is called peace. The one thing that everybody in this entire world is so desperately searching for is peace. Not money, not happiness. The number one thing everyone wants is peace. Desperate for it. So seek it. Obtain it. And I just gave you some tips on how you can do that. So I'm not sitting here and saying, oh, you have to forgive and then walk away. I'm giving you tips on some things that you can do to help you along on making a decision on when you're ready to forgive. Or even if you want to. So that's all I have for you tonight. And you guys, we're coming down to like the last 3 lives. Like we're almost over with July. And so I hope that I'm saying something in this series that goes to keep you awake. That's actually helping you along your emotional healing journey. And also bringing some level of peace in your own home, in your own heart, and helping you along this journey because, I'm on this journey right with you. Trust me when I say I'm on this journey right along with you. So if you want to know more about, if you're new and you don't know me, you never heard of me before, I'm Jay, founder and CEO of Matters of My Heart. I'm also the creator of the I Am Empowerment Movement, which is a private Facebook group for adult survivors of childhood, domestic and sexual abuse. And if you want to know more about me or check me out, check out my books, go to my website, mattersofmyheart.com. And until tomorrow night, you guys, I love you to life. And I'll see you tomorrow night. Good night. Good night, Susan.